Hello, welcome everyone. So as you can see at the moment in Brighton, we have a bin collection strike going on at the moment. So it's another reason to get out of the city and get up onto the trails. Hello, welcome everyone. So in this video I'm going to be reflecting on the Downslink Ultra, which I completed a couple of weeks ago. I've said to myself I'm taking 2 weeks off running, which might seem a little bit like overkill, but because I'm new to this whole endurance running thing this year, I've done now 2 marathons, 2 ultras. I'm just wanting to really take time to let my muscles recover and just make sure that I'm doing all the right things in terms of getting back to fitness before I start running again. And that's been good overall. My main mantra that I have in the first week of recovery after an event is doing at least one thing a day for recovery. So whether that's, having a cold bath or having a walk or elevating. So just making sure I'm doing something. And I think it's good psychologically as well, just to feel like you're actively recovering and helping the recovery process. So overall, I was really pleased with how the Downslink Ultra went. I had A, B and C goals set before in terms of what I wanted to achieve. The main one just being to finish. I would have been happy with my C goal really, just to get to the end in the cutoff in 10 hours. My B goal was to do it in sub 7 hours, and my A goal, the ideal, was to do it in sub 6.5, and I managed to do that. So I came out in the end in 6:18:54. So I was really pleased with that. Pacing went very well, and I'm going to break down, just how the event went, some difficulties, some challenges, because of course there were some, even though I was very pleased with the outcome. It's not to say that it was easy. There were some very, very tough bits of it. So I'm just going to break those down in today's video and talk through what I've learned from the Downslink Ultra, which was my longest distance yet. So 38 miles, about 61 kilometers. So overall the pacing went very well. I didn't do any mile faster than 8:30, which I'd said to myself before. I didn't want to do any miles too quick, just to ensure that I paced myself for the whole distance. The early miles, in fact I'll put up on the screen here just the breakdown of my miles and my pacing. The early miles were more hilly, the first few miles, but what really helped with pacing and not going out too fast was the fact that early on, when there was those ups and downs through the woods near St Martha's Hill, there were just single track routes, and that meant that you had to just really stay behind the person in front of you. So that meant that I was much more cautious about pacing. I didn't go out too fast, even if there was some downhills, and it was kind of nice and measured in the early miles. I did almost get lost early on. So in the first few miles, I think it was maybe around mile 4 or 5, there was a turning to the right, and we were looking out for the red and white tape that the event organisers had put out, but I missed it, and I was actually kind of in automatic pilot. I was following this group of about 5 or 6 people in front of me. I think they were friends. I think they were running together, and they were going at a kind of pace I wanted to run, and I just thought, well, I'll just follow them for a bit. So they went straight ahead, and I was just so absent-mindedly following them that I actually missed the tape on the right. As did they as well. I think they were deep in conversation at this point. We were very lucky because there was a woman behind us who shouted, oh, you're going the wrong way. And then we took the right turn where the tape was. I think we probably only went about 30-40 metres. But very early on in the race, that could have been something that could have completely changed the day. And if we'd gone off and done an extra couple of miles, then we're trying to find the route again. So thanks so much to the woman. I think she actually ended up coming second in the end for the women, so she sped off past us after she told us where to go. So much appreciated. Didn't end up getting lost this time. So pacing I was really pleased with overall. Came out at 9:55 per mile average pace, which got me in under 6.5 hours, like I mentioned before. The funny thing was that actually the harder miles seemed to be some of the middle miles. And I guess that wasn't what I was expecting. In the previous Ultra I did, the hardest miles were the later ones because I was experiencing this kind of cumulative tiredness. And I assumed that would be the case for this Ultra too. But yeah, it was about 3.5 to 4.5 hours. That was the really difficult part. And it was mainly because I was finding it hard to get air into my lungs, I think. I mean, I'm asthmatic, so I do have to make sure I kind of control my breathing even more so in these long distance events. So when I got to 19 to 29 miles, I was finding that I was having to run for a bit and then walk for a bit. The strategy I used was run for a mile, walk for a minute. So I did that for, I think, a good 6 or 7 miles. And that seemed to help. And then I found that I broke through that and then started to be able to run continuously from about like 28, 29 miles. So I think that's something I'll take to the next Ultra and the other events that I do. It's not always the case that it's the later miles that are more difficult, and you really have to just accept the ebb and flow of long distance. So yes, it might be that you have a dip early on, but that's not necessary to say that you need to worry yourself or concern yourself that, you know, oh, you've still got half of the distance left to do and that's all going to be as hard as what you're experiencing at that particular point. So it can be that, you know, you push through a certain barrier and then, you know, even if your legs are feeling heavy or lungs are feeling tired, it can be that things start to work again and actually improve and get better, even though you're much further into the distance. So that's a positive I think I'll take into next time. So there definitely were some tough points in the Ultra, and if I think about all the various aches and pains I had, there was quite a list overall. I had problems with my thighs, my legs tightening up, my glutes, my lower back, which I had to stop and stretch out at one of the aid stations for about a minute. I had a twinge in my right knee. I got a stitch at one point. My shoulders were aching as well because of my running vest, because I wasn't used to wearing it for that long. So quite a few different things, but the thing I was really happy with is that all of those things came and went. So it wasn't that they stayed for a long time or they were too intense or excruciating. They did come and go, and you know, I started to relax into it and ultimately enjoy most of it in the end, which is a real positive thing. Sometimes the videos I look at of Ultras, I think, can be a little bit misleading online, where people say, oh, I enjoyed every minute of it, but I definitely haven't enjoyed every minute of it so far. I think, yeah, the enjoyment comes in stages, in parts of it, and certainly at the end. But it's the kind of thing where you're happy that you battled through it, rather than, I think, enjoying it all of the time. So I tend to be a bit sceptical if people say they enjoy all of it. So the other thing that I was thinking about was nutrition, and overall that went really well. I didn't have any gels whatsoever. I feel like I've kind of given up on gels now. I never felt that they sat in my stomach quite right, but I also worried about not being able to get kind of quick release energy from other food sources. But, you know, I had a flapjack, I had like a fruit and nut bar. I had quite a few chews, so I had my chews that I tend to use, and I also had some like Ella's Kitchen, pretty much like baby food sachets, and I found they went down very well. I mean, I did feel stomach problems towards the end, but that's kind of typical for me when running longer distances, but nothing too problematic, nothing too intense. And then in terms of hydration, that went really well too. So in the longer distances I've done before, I've always felt pretty dehydrated at some point, and like I've had to really kind of chug water just to get enough hydration in. But I started drinking from quite early on, and I had a couple of sips every 10 minutes. So probably equivalent to about 500 millilitres per hour. And I found that worked perfectly. So I didn't get dehydrated, and I felt kind of the hydration side of things went really well. The other thing I wanted to mention was my race pack. So I did have a couple of struggles with my race pack, and I think that was mainly around not really being able to access lots of the pockets. So my Aonergy race vest was the one I was using, only a 5 litre, so a fairly small one, which was enough for the distance, but it was just difficult when I was trying to get out a particular thing to eat from the back of the vest, and you had to kind of take lots of other stuff out. There was only a certain amount you could fit in the front. So in light of that, I've now got a new vest. I've got this 10 litre from decathlon. So from decathlon, I'm going to be trying that out when I start running again in a couple of days time, but I've just taken it out today for its first kind of walk, and this seems to have greater space in the accessible pockets, so not necessarily more accessible pockets, but more space in the ones that it does have. So I'll be trying this out in later runs as well. So one of the things that I was concerned about before doing the Ultra was the bout of runner's toe that I'd had, which was a hangover from the Brighton Marathon. So during the Brighton Marathon, well, I didn't notice it at the time, but towards the end, when I took my socks off, I saw that I had got this massive blister under my toe, and it was pushing the toenail upwards. So after looking at some various advice things online, I decided to burst it and then try and make sure that the fluid was kept out of it, so it didn't push my toenail all the way off. The toenail's still there. It has like a split in the middle, but it is still hanging on. But obviously one of my concerns was that doing the Ultra was just going to put it under undue stress, and then it might kind of come off during. So I looked at some various things. One of the really useful videos I found on this actually was by Dan Runs. So if you haven't checked out his channel, then do so. I'll put a link to it below. But he has a video about runner's toe, which made me feel much more reassured. And one of the things that he mentioned in there was about silicone toe caps. So I bought myself one of those, and they just go over the toe and they protect your toe from the outer of your shoe, kind of pulling up your toenail and things like this. And I wore that during the Ultra, worked really well, didn't have any problems with my toenail whatsoever, and it looks like my toenail is on the way to recovery at the moment, so I was really pleased with that. So thanks, Dan, for the video on that. Just found it really useful. You know, just the little suggestion of the toe cap and kind of how to approach training with runner's toe as well, so just super useful overall. So those are my thoughts on the Downslink Ultra. Overall, really happy with how it went. Oh, it's a bit of an incline here, can I take this one easy? So really happy with how it went, and it feels particularly significant in light of how I found running last year. It was a real grind last year because I injured my ankle playing football, so I tore a ligament, and it meant that I couldn't run for about 4.5 to 5 months. And even once I got back to running, I had to do kind of walking for a lot. So to get this distance out of the way, to get it under my belt, feels really positive, really significant. So really pleased with it. I haven't got any concrete plans for the rest of this year at the moment. However, I'm looking at a couple of options around races, and I want to go out there and just get up on the trails. I think one thing that I've realised in doing the Brighton Marathon and in doing the Downslink Ultra is that really what fires me is doing off-road stuff, is doing trails. I still will do road stuff here and there, I think. I definitely want to get back to doing lots of park runs near me too in the coming weeks. So I'll be bringing you some of those. But yeah, really just getting out on the trails, exploring, particularly the South Downs around Brighton where I live, and getting out there and just being able to enjoy the freedom of it, I think. So I'm now back home after my walk up on the trails. Those were my reflections on the Downslink Ultra. Thanks very much for tuning in, and also big thanks to everyone who subscribed and commented on videos recently. Really much appreciated. Thanks very much for watching.